how sweet it is. A few months ago, Jackie Gleason called me, asked me to come down to see him next time I was in Fort Lauderdale. I went by to see him. He had a great idea, so he said, to improve Publix markets. I listened to him. He said Miss Gleason enjoyed shopping at Publix, but she and her friends would like to have a place to sit down and drink coffee and let the grocery clerks fill the order. They didn't want to do the work. I said, Mr. Gleason, I came into the grocery business about 60-odd years ago, taking orders over the telephone, delivering them with a little mule and wagon on the north side of Atlanta. And I would have never been in the grocery business if there had not been a man named Clarence Saunders. In 1916, Clarence Saunders originated and opened the first Piggly Wiggly store, which was self-service. I had worked in my dad's store where you wait on the customer and you go down here and you get something, you come down here, you put it all on the counter, add it all up and it wouldn't amount to $1. But when I worked part-time in a Piggly Wiggly and saw that one clerk, cashier, if you will, could wait on 15 customers at one time. That is, she could check out as fast as 15 people would shop. That fascinated me. I still didn't plan to be in the grocery business. I came to Tampa on a vacation in the summer. I met a man that owned some Piggly Wiggly stores, and he gave me a job, not expecting to stay in the grocery business. But after 6 weeks, he made me a store manager and sent me to St. Petersburg and took a little store doing $1,300 a week. In 6 months, it was doing $6,600. That certainly made me the white-haired boy of the chain. I tell you that because I'm leading up to something. I was transferred to Winter Haven, to the largest volume store in the chain, doing $7,000 a week. I was in 1926. In 1930, the boom had burst, Wall Street had crashed, the hurricanes hit Florida, banks went broke, soup lines were formed over the country, and we're in the Great Depression. The same white-haired boy that took a store doing $1,300 a week and put it to $6,600 in 6 months, took a store doing $7,000 a week, and in 4 years took it down to $2,000. We don't want any pessimistic ideas to get out in this meeting, but there's an old saying, you know, what goes up will come down. That's not going to apply to Publix markets because we've only gone one way for 56 years, and that's the only direction in which we expect to go. I'd like to share with you some of the experiences we've had to remind you of some of the days when things weren't quite as good as they were in 1986. You saw a flash on the screen of the old store. That was 25 feet wide and 65 feet deep. You could put 38 of those inside one of our new markets now. Wooden floors, rat-infested, roaches and flies and no air conditioning. We've come a long way since then. After 10 years of apparently not getting very far in the food business, I did close the 2 stores we had in Winter Haven, open one we called a supermarket, 7,200 feet, Wouldn't hardly be called a supermarket today, Charlie. But I'd been all over the country, and I got all the bright ideas I could. They weren't nailed down, so I'd bring them with me from California to Boston. We opened the store in 1940. It was further ahead for those times than anybody's new store that opens today. We had the first completely air-conditioned store in the country. We had electric outdoors, the very first, beautiful terrazzo floors, pastel walls, piped-in music, everything that was modern in the way of equipment in 1940. After working about 20 hours a day, I went over across the street on the steps of the Baptist church, looked back at the store, the first fluorescent lights I'd ever seen. They were new in 1940. And I thought, well, there'll never be a finer store than that. How wrong I was. We didn't build another store after that until about 1948 or 49. We built the old Dixieland store here. I wasn't far wrong in 1940 because the 1949 store in Dixieland, and we built number 22 in Orlando at the same time, we used identical same plans. No changes whatsoever in 9 years. Later on, I got to talking to Joe Blanton, and I said, you know, we had a set of plans that we didn't change for 9 years. Now, if we get a store almost ready to open, we find ourselves making changes and improvements before we can get it open. And that's the way it's been for many years, and will continue to be that way because we're going to continue to improve. We certainly can all take pride in the progress that Publix has made. It's rather unique. I mentioned to someone recently, and Howard had a screen on the board, we've had the dubious honor of competing with 9 out of the top 10 food chains in America. At one time, A&P was by far the largest in the country. They have just sold their family marts to Kroger, so they will not be in Florida anymore. Food Fair was one of the top 4 or 5 top chains, and Joe Blanton and I used to watch them open a new store down on the East Coast, which would be about 4 times as large as anything we were building, and we couldn't dream that we'd ever have a 25,000-foot store doing the kind of business they were doing. They, of course, went bankrupt and out. Another fine chain, which about 1942, just before the war, was the finest chain in the United States. It was called Penn Fruit in Philadelphia. When Joe and I visited them about 1946, they had one store that was doing more business than our 21. And we just thought they were the top merchants, and they were at that time. They went bankrupt and have been out of business for many years. One of the top 10 that used to compete with us in Florida was Grand Union. They've been in business over 100 years. They're pretty strong up on the eastern seaboard, but as most of you know, a couple years ago they had 50 stores in Florida. Some they had spent as much as $1 million on a single store, remodeling it, and then overnight they closed the 50 stores and moved out of the state. Well, you could take this little conversation 2 ways. You could say, boy, he is telling us how good he is. Not altogether that. They put themselves out of business. We didn't put them out of business. And we're not likely to have big, successful chains that are going to just quit and leave our state. We're going to have to compete, as Howard says, with the toughest, sharpest competition that in the United States, because they all like to get into Florida. And down through the years, we've been able to hold our head up pretty high and make a satisfactory progress. We're going to continue to be successful. We're not going to have big, strong chains go out of business because of their poor management. I don't think we're going to run into any competition that we will see have to leave because of their poor management, more so than our strong ability as merchants. But anyway, so much for that. We've got a great start in this new year. We've just finished a year that's almost unbelievable with our growth. Profits are satisfactory, and we continue to grow. At the beginning of '86, when Charter Jr. says we plan to open 28 stores this year, I said, well, that's a little bit heavy. I don't think we can handle that many. We opened 28. So when he says this morning we're going to open 35, I'm with you all the way, Charlie. We'll open 35. But I'm sure everyone here realizes in opening 35 stores, the amount of work involved, and more importantly, the necessity for getting and training the right people.